$31,200. According to the United States government, if a family of four earns just $1 more than this amount, they have officially escaped poverty.
$31,200? Seriously? In most cities, that won't even cover rent and food, let alone a family.
I know, you think it's ridiculous too, right?
But look at the reality of your bank account, the crushing weight of your grocery bill, and the relentless rise of your rent. Now consider a different number, $140,000. This is not the price of a luxury lifestyle with vacations and designer clothes. This is the new mathematical reality of what it actually costs to keep that same family from drowning in debt in modern America. We are witnessing a statistical illusion where the definition of the middle class is being quietly erased, leaving six-figure earners living paycheck to paycheck while on paper they are considered thriving. Why does the largest economy in history still use a measuring stick from the era of President Kennedy to define survival in the year 2025? Who exactly benefits from keeping the poverty line artificially low while the cost of existence skyrockets?
Think about it. Who benefits from keeping this number so low? Is it incompetence? Or is it something more intentional?
To understand this great betrayal, we must travel back to a time when a single income bought a home and the sound of a grocery store cash register meant something entirely different. In the early 1960s, an economist working for the Social Security Administration named Molly Orshansky was given a monumental task. She needed to draw a line in the sand that would define who was poor and who was not. At that time, the American economy looked vastly different from the complex web of expenses we navigate today. Orshansky analyzed household data and discovered a consistent pattern. She found that the average American family spent roughly one-third of their income solely on food. This observation became the foundation of a formula that would rule the lives of millions for generations to come.
It was simple math for a simpler time. Food was cheap. Rent was cheap. One income was enough.
It sounds like a fairy tale now, doesn't it?
Her logic was elegant in its simplicity. To find the poverty line, she calculated the cost of a bare-bones economy food plan and multiplied that number by 3. The result was the official threshold for poverty. It made perfect sense in an era where grocery bills were the heaviest burden on a family budget, while housing was abundant and healthcare costs were negligible. Picture the typical suburban neighborhood of that time, where a single income could secure a mortgage and a full cart of groceries without the aid of a credit card. The formula worked because the world it measured was relatively stable. However, the government took this snapshot of 1963 and froze it in amber. For the next 60 years, bureaucrats adjusted the dollar amount to account for general inflation, but they never dared to question the multiplier itself. They continued to assume that if a family could afford a cheap basket of food, they could automatically afford rent, medical care, and transportation with the remaining 2/3 of their income. They ignored the tectonic shifts that were about to tear the cost of living apart from the cost of food. This refusal to update the underlying logic created a ghost metric, haunting modern policy with the assumptions of a bygone era. We are still measuring the 21st century survival struggle with a ruler designed for a post-war grocery trip. As the decades rolled on, a silent revolution took place in the fields and factories of America that completely inverted the financial structure of the household. The industrialization of agriculture and the globalization of supply chains crashed the price of calories. Through efficiency and scale, the cost of putting a meal on the table dropped dramatically relative to wages. In 1960, food demanded 33% of a paycheck, forcing families to budget strictly for every loaf of bread. By the year 2025, that number had collapsed to roughly 10%. If you looked only at the supermarket receipt, it would seem that life had become significantly more affordable. But while the cost of bread and milk shrank, new financial predators grew in the shadows, waiting to devour the savings of the working class. The pillars of modern survival, specifically housing, healthcare, and childcare, did not just inch upward with inflation, they exploded, decoupling entirely from the trajectory of wages and food prices. Expenses that were once negligible or easily managed have mutated into monsters that now consume 50 to 60% of a household's income. Imagine a pie chart representing your life. The slice of the pie dedicated to food has withered away to a sliver, only to be replaced by the gaping maw of rent and medical premiums that swallow the majority of the chart. We have transitioned from a goods-based economy, where physical items were the burden, to a service-based economy, where the essential infrastructure of life is sold at a premium.
This brings us to a critical realization. If we are to be intellectually honest, we must update the variables in the government's own equation. Let us perform a simple experiment using the logic from 1963. Remember, the original formula was based on the single largest expense multiplied by 3. Back then, it was food. Today, for the vast majority of Americans, the single largest expense is unequivocally housing. If rent is the new food, the mathematics of poverty change entirely. Consider that the average rent for a modest dwelling in the United States now hovers around $2,000 a month. That equates to $24,000 a year just to keep a roof over your head, and that is before you pay for a single utility bill or internet connection. If we apply the classic multiplier of 3 to this modern reality of $24,000 in housing costs, the poverty threshold instantly jumps to $72,000. Just look at that number, $72,000. This simple calculation exposes a terrifying truth. The official poverty line of $31,000 is not just slightly inaccurate, it is mathematically irrelevant. It is less than half of what the original logic dictates it should be. By clinging to the price of eggs instead of the price of shelter, the system has successfully hidden millions of struggling families from the official poverty statistics. This calculation proves that the current definition of poverty is practically a hallucination, ignoring the crushing weight of the lease agreement in favor of the price of a gallon of milk. Let us construct a financial autopsy of the modern American family of 4 to see exactly where the money goes. Picture a spreadsheet filling up line by line, representing 2 working parents and 2 children living in an average town far removed from the inflated costs of New York or San Francisco. We begin with the non-negotiable cost of shelter. As we established, the national median rent demands $24,000 a year. This secures a modest roof over their heads, nothing more. But here lies the seismic shift from the 1960s. Back then, one income supported the household while a parent managed the home for free. Today, economic necessity forces both parents into the workforce, which triggers a massive, unavoidable invoice known as childcare. For 2 children, the national average for daycare and after-school programs creates a bill of $32,000 annually. This is a line item that simply did not exist in Molly Orshansky's world, yet today it costs significantly more than the rent itself. Next, we add the cost of keeping these 4 human beings physically well. Between insurance premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses, the healthcare system extracts another $15,000 to $20,000. We must assume everyone stays relatively healthy, as one major medical emergency could shatter this delicate balance entirely. To earn the income required to pay these bills, both parents need to commute. 2 modest vehicles, fuel, insurance, and maintenance add $10,000 to the ledger. Then we must include the very basics that Orshansky focused on originally: food on the table, electricity, water, internet for schoolwork, and heat. Even with strict budgeting, utilities and groceries for 4 people consume another $15,000. And finally, before a single cent reaches their bank account to pay these vendors, the government takes its share. Federal, state, and payroll taxes on this level of income strip away approximately $25,000. When you tally these unavoidable costs, the calculator displays a staggering total falling between $130,000 and $140,000. Pause and look at that final sum. It is crucial to understand what is absent from this list. This budget includes $0 for family vacations. It allocates $0 for the latest iPhone. There is no line item for daily coffee runs, no budget for a college fund, and dangerously, no room for retirement savings. This is not a portrait of extravagance or luxury living. It is a portrait of zero-sum survival. $140,000 is no longer the benchmark of the thriving upper middle class. It is the mathematical floor required for a family of four to simply reach the end of the month without sliding into debt. If the mathematics of survival are so obviously broken, why does the most powerful government on earth refuse to fix the calculator? Why continue to use a ruler from 1963 to measure the drowning tides of 2025? The answer does not lie in incompetence or ignorance, it lies in self-preservation. To update the poverty formula would be, quite literally, an act of political and fiscal suicide for the United States government. Consider the first and most terrifying implication, the federal budget. The poverty line is not merely a statistic used for press releases, it is the financial gatekeeper for the entire American social safety net. Dozens of massive government programs, from SNAP food benefits and Medicaid to Head Start and heating assistance, rely on this specific number to decide who gets help and who gets turned away. Currently, the gate is kept narrow, keeping millions of struggling families ineligible for aid because, on paper, they are considered middle class. If the government were to suddenly acknowledge the reality that a household earning $70,000 is actually living in poverty, the floodgates would burst open. Overnight, the number of citizens legally entitled to government assistance would triple. Millions of people who currently scrape by without aid would suddenly qualify for billions of dollars in benefits. The sheer volume of new claims would instantly overwhelm the national treasury, pushing an already indebted system toward immediate insolvency. It is a fiscal apocalypse that no lawmaker is willing to trigger.
Beyond the money, there is the optics of power. In the world of politics, perception is reality, and the current poverty metric allows every administration to sell a specific narrative of success. Year after year, presidents stand at podiums and declare that the poverty rate is low, hovering around 11 or 12%. This statistic is used to prove that the economic engine is working. Now, imagine a president stepping onto that same stage and admitting that under the new, accurate formula, the real poverty rate is actually 40%. It would be an admission of catastrophic failure. It would shatter the illusion of the American dream and reveal that nearly half the population is economically underwater. No politician, regardless of their party, is willing to be the one on whose watch the middle class officially ceased to exist. We are watching a desperate performance of statistical theater. Picture a politician in an expensive suit, sweating profusely as he attempts to shove a full-grown elephant into a hotel mini-fridge. The elephant is the massive, undeniable reality of modern poverty, and the fridge is the tiny, outdated container of the official statistics. He pushes and he shoves, ignoring the trunk and limbs spilling out the sides, just so he can turn to the cameras, smile, and say everything fits perfectly. The government chooses to maintain this absurdity because the alternative is to admit that the system is broken beyond repair. By freezing the formula in the past, they protect the budget and their reputations while leaving the American family to pay the price for their denial. The statistical deception of the poverty line does not merely distort economic charts, it reshapes the biological future of the nation. We see this most clearly in the rise of the demographic known as double income, no kids. Pop culture often paints these couples as selfish hedonists, prioritizing luxury vacations over family. But the economic ledger reveals a much darker truth. For millions of young Americans, remaining childless is not a lifestyle preference, but a calculated survival strategy. They have crunched the numbers and realized that introducing a child into their budget is a financial risk event that would instantly drag them below the real threshold of survival. They are not choosing freedom, they are being priced out of their own biology. This reality breeds a pervasive psychological smog known as burnout, a deep existential exhaustion that comes from running at full speed on a treadmill that is accelerating backward. The modern American worker is statistically more productive, better educated, and works more efficient hours than their grandparents did in the post-war era. Yet that grandfather could buy a 3-bedroom house on a high school diploma and a factory wage, while his grandchild needs 2 corporate degrees and a 6-figure salary just to qualify for a mortgage on a condo. It creates the haunting sensation of running in place.
watching the finish line of stability move further away with every paycheck. The tragedy of this situation becomes even sharper when viewed through an international lens. In many Nordic nations, a salary of $60,000 secures a life of genuine comfort and middle-class security. That is because the heavy lifting of survival, specifically healthcare, childcare, and education, is supported by the social infrastructure. In those systems, income is for living, but in the United States, income is for surviving. We have financialized every aspect of human existence. Your health is a market commodity, your child's education is a debt product, and your shelter is a speculative asset class for hedge funds. Consequently, an income of $120,000 in America often provides less purchasing power and peace of mind than half that amount in countries where the basic costs of life are not traded on the stock market. We are effectively creating a generation of high-earning exiles, citizens who follow all the rules and earn impressive salaries, yet feel like refugees in their own economy. The government is not coming to rescue you with a calculator update. The system benefits from the illusion of your prosperity, so waiting for a policy change is a strategy for failure. You must break free from the seductive lullaby of the official middle-class label. In this new economic era, a high salary is no longer synonymous with wealth if your fixed costs devour every cent before the month ends. You can be earning six figures and still be impoverished by the weight of your lifestyle. The only escape is a radical shift in mindset. You must ruthlessly defend the gap between what you earn and what you spend, avoiding the trap of lifestyle creep where your expenses rise to match your raises. But saving alone is not enough. You must transition from relying solely on income to acquiring assets. Wages will always struggle to keep pace with the real cost of living, but ownership of real value, whether it is equity, real estate, or hard assets, is the only shield against the erosion of your labor. The ruler is broken. Do not use it to measure your worth or your safety. Stop looking at the gross number on your paycheck and start looking at your real purchasing power. In a world designed to rent your time and drain your wallet, the only true rebellion is to own what truly belongs to you.